Good afternoon. With this presentation, I would like to introduce you a project we developed in Alstom Power, which is the quantification of the CO2 avoided thanks to the implementation of our technologies. First, I would like to present the group because you don't necessarily know who Alstom is, then the project itself, and what are the next challenges ahead. Alstom is a French group which is working in three main activities developed in 4 sectors. We are building and providing the infrastructure for power, either thermal power or renewable power, but we are not operating them. This is EDF, E.ON, or RWE is doing that. We also have the infrastructure, providing the infrastructure for the transmission of electricity. This is our sector called grid. And finally, we are a bit most known with our transport sector, as we are providing the high-speed trains in France called TGV, or you might see the name in different trams and subways all over the world. So as I was saying, we are most famous for the transport sector. However, it represents 1/3 of our sales, and more than 50% is coming from the sales of the power sector. I am myself working for the power sector. I'm in charge of sustainability for it. We are so in total of more than 92,000 employees all over the world, so in which more than 50% are working for power. So I'm obviously focusing on the power area. We have the largest portfolio of integrated solutions that we can provide, and it goes so thermal products like gas power station, coal power stations, oil and nuclear. We are working on the conventional island, so it means the turbine and the generator. It's our other French company, Areva, is working on the reactor. In terms of renewable energy now, we can provide hydro, wind, solar, the concentrated solar energy, geothermal, and biomass. It is important that you see all this mix of portfolio because the project we developed is being applied on all of them. We are really considering all of the technologies and see how they can have an influence on the CO2 abatement. So why did we decide to measure the CO2 we were abating, or that our customers actually is abating? Well, you can only improve what you are measuring and monitoring. And with the International Energy Agency showing us that if we are growing the way we are now with the business as usual, it's not possible. So you have to reduce by between 10 and 14 gigatons of CO2 per year to limit the temperature increase lower than or around 2 degrees. The way we want to achieve that within Alstom is so with our technology mix and the diversity of it, as I presented before, to improve the efficiency of our technologies, and also by developing the carbon capture and storage. The projects we launched, we first had studies, life cycle assessments were realized. There are studies you can find publicly. There are studies also that we have ordered specially for Alstom to have a first assessment of where we were standing. And you can see the colors, the blue for both of the studies are showing the same thing. The main impact, the main emission, CO2 emission is coming from the life when the power stations is actually in operation, so when our customers are running them. So for this study, we are only considering the use of the power station and the CO2 emitted during this use. So it's not a full life cycle analysis. Okay, now the methodology. That's a bit more complicated. What we wanted to do it was to have a methodology that could be reviewed and certified by an external auditor. We wanted to have the best-in-class methodology, and that we could use the data also for economic impact and assessments. That was our missions. I will try to be simple with the methodology itself, but it's we really been a lot in details. We have assessed each country, and when the country was too big, like in China, each area, and we have looked at the grid emission. For this, we used the Greenhouse Gas Protocol methodology for CDM countries. Today, 11 to 12 countries did actually the exercise themselves and provided figures of their emission. We have done the exercise for 140 countries, or areas, because for China there are three areas. So this is, you see the baseline emission for year one, for instance, so the upper line. And then we look when one of Alstom products is getting in operation, what is the emission of this product? And if it's lower, the difference between the average of the country and our power stations will be the CO2 abated thanks to the technology. But the year after that, your baseline has changed because you had a new product. So every year, we have to reassess 140 countries, and each time compare with our new products that are running in these countries. So this is really comprehensive methodology, and we are working, so it is based on Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and we are also working with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development to see how they could reuse that for other calculations of the same type. And yes, we are cross-checking and validated the methodology by taking the data that are available from these 11 to 12 countries which have done the exercise themselves. What are the results? So in 2010, we had the results for 6 years, from 2002 to 2008, that were verified by PricewaterhouseCoopers. It helps us then to communicate on the strategy we put in place. So again, the diversity of the portfolio, the energy efficiency, and the carbon capture and storage. We have figures. It's not only a strategy that we took out of the hat. We have figures to support this. It has an improvement. And we can analyze all this data by fuel, by technology, all of that. So the results now are very interesting. So from 2002 to 2008, Alstom built or had a main retrofit activity on 944 projects, which represents more or less 92 gigawatts of new installed capacity in the world. We have abated 152 million tons, knowing that it's cumulative, in 2008. The interesting thing is that in red, it's the contribution from thermal power energy to the CO2 abatement, and in blue is from the renewable power energy. So then I will go a bit more in detail, but basically if your grid, it's full of coal power stations and you come with gas, there will be an abatement in this country. And so it's in the red part. And of course, if you put hydro, it will be in the blue part. But so you can see the thermal power can have an impact on the CO2 abatement. And the good news also is that the impact of the renewable power is growing over the years. And Alstom is investing a lot in renewable powers. It has been 6 years that we are investing in new technologies. And the last acquisitions are for ocean, so tidal energy and waves energy, which are newcomers. If you go one more step in details, so in dark blue, where the abatement is coming from the most, is the new gas power stations In green, it's thanks to the hydro. In yellow, it's our nuclear activity. And over that, you have the impacts thanks to retrofits and other renewables. So really, they are all kind of energy can contribute to improve the grid on an area in the world. We have mainly an impact is coming from the new built power stations rather than the retrofitted ones. We still have, so we have 96% is coming from this. When we are doing our assessment, we also know that we are still selling 6% of power stations that are not better than the average grid, and we are calling them business as usual. And then, yeah, so as I said, we have a new installed capacity of 92 gigawatts for 152 megatons of CO2 avoided. It means that per gigawatt there is more or less 1.5 million tons of CO2 abated. So that's the results of the study. What are the next challenges? We are not stopping in 2008. We are every year processing the calculations. We have the data for 2009 and for 2010 that are currently being reviewed by Price. They will be published in June in our annual report, but I can already tell you that there is more or less 20 megatons of CO2 per year in addition that are abated, so we are almost reaching the 2,000 million tons of CO2. CO2, of course, was key for the energy industry, but we are also now looking at water, and we are developing a similar methodology to try to see how we can reduce the water footprint of the power stations. And we are also working on life cycle assessments. In parallel of this, we've developed a tool which is really tailor-made for our products, but this is still work in progress, and I hope I can present you more results later. Thank you very much.